Hey, all right. Welcome back to the Wolves Only podcast powered by JWFIT. We have Aubrey Whitley today with us, a elite JWFIT coach. Aubrey, I am so stoked to have you on today.
I am so stoked to be here. Thank you.
Hell yeah. I it's been really exciting working with you, and it's fun because like you and I communicate. Actually, I communicate with you a lot more than a lot of our coaches for some reason. I typically get to wake up to a nice message. Hey, coach. I just love it. It makes me feel so good. And I just love your attitude about everything. Um, you know, it's usually funny because I know typically how I find everybody, or how everybody ends up on the call. But what was your experience with landing on JWFIT? How'd you end up with a bunch of tatted up, just drug addict boneheads like us, right? How did that work out for you?
Well, funny enough, you were actually felt safe to me, and I'll explain why. So, I've never been shown tough love in my life, as odd as that sounds. So, I come from a family that we don't talk about stuff. We, are a little closed off and we joke about stuff a lot. We, downplay stuff and we don't ever talk about what's real. And I was at a point just with coaching where I was stuck. I was running myself into the ground. I was honestly probably trying to be somebody I wasn't. And the ad that I saw was you and Dane, and you guys were just, first of all, you caught my attention because you're like jacked and tatted up. And I was like, okay, what do these guys have to say? And as soon as you started talking, it was more of a feeling. I was like, I have a really good feeling about these guys. And I'm a big energy person. So when I have a feeling, I listen to it, especially when it's that strong. And I was like, I'm just going to hit the button. Like, I'm just going to hit, hey, I'm going to send a quick message and just see where this goes because you guys captured me. And when you said your authentic self, that stood out to me because I was in an amazing coaching program before, but it was all about finding a niche and just going for that niche. But every time I would want to tell my story, or I would want to use my past, or what I consider my superpower, which is my past, it kind of got shut down. It was just sort of, yeah, that'll come, but focus on the coaching, focus on what the physique is going to look like, or what, the meal plan is going to look like. And that bored me, to be honest. I had this powerful story, in my opinion. And when you guys got in the camera and you said, I'm going to teach you how to be your authentic self and coach your way, I was like, how are they going to do this? So within probably 2 minutes, you messaged me back with a video message. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to get on a call. And the whole time I had that feeling. I said, there's a big energy around this. And my husband was in the next room and I showed him the video. I said, am I crazy? What? Like, let's just get on this call and see. And I was sold. Like within a few minutes, I felt so comfortable with you guys that, I mean, I knew I wasn't going anywhere. I was like, I've got to see how much I can grow with these guys.
That's awesome. It's so true too, because in a space, and the coaching isn't a social media thing, right? The coaching is Zoom and communicating and setting up programs and stuff like that. But how we acquire clients, how we put ourselves out there is all done on social media. So to me, I look at social media, and I've said this in a little bit of content that I've put out before. The three main ways that people are getting noticed, getting traction, getting anything are obscene wealth, which is always faked, incredible intellect, which is really hard to relate to in most cases for most people, and then authenticity. And you look at guys like Sam? Is it Sam Sulak? Is that his name?
Yeah.
The bodybuilder is like the
Yeah,
world.
the guy that's the raw guy right now. He's super raw footage and doing everything opposite of what
really long, like curly hair, and he wears the shitty hat. And like he's like by far right now the most viral person out there. Now, I've been preaching authenticity. I'm not going to say I called out Sam, but I have been preaching authenticity for like the last 2 years in this space. because everything has been smoke and mirrors. And I've been like, this is what's going to hit. This is like, just be you, be raw, be
Yeah.
uncensored. And then this cat comes along. He's 21 years old. He's got like the most incredible build, the weirdest diet in the world. And he puts out all this content. He posts like 7 times a day, and people can't get enough of him. And so anyways, and I don't want to get into him because everybody's talking about him right now, but the point is that authenticity has taken over, and that was what we wanted to really put out there. And in that ad, it's funny because we got a lot of hate for that. Me and Dane did, it was cringy, and I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks, but it was cringy. It was you guys look like you're gonna kick my ass. And we're like, that wasn't what we meant to be. That's just how we look. That's just how we are. But it's funny that that resonated with you, because it is true. So many people want to change the way you do things, in the spirit of their process and what works for them, or maybe had worked for them. But what works for some people doesn't work for everybody. And we know this in coaching, in fitness, in lifestyle. Everybody's different. So that's what I really emphasize on. And I'm so glad that you took to that. And now it's really cool because we're hearing about your story. We're learning about you. You're putting yourself out there. And from what I understand, the level of attention that people and relatability that people are getting from you has increased drastically.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was funny because when you were saying that, someone said it looked like y'all wanted to kick their ass, I think there was a part of me that knew I needed a kick in the ass. I'm like, these guys are probably going to shoot it to me straight. And it's a little like uncomfortable sometimes. I mean, you guys haven't even really laid into me yet because I've tried to do everything well, but I really trust you guys because I've watched you, how you work. And not only are you so honest with people, but you really love the people you work with. I mean, I feel very quickly like it's family.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're crazy about our coaches and crazy about everybody involved in the program. That's for sure. But enough about us. I want to learn more. I've heard a lot of your story and your stories, and there's a lot of things that I'm curious about. You're also in recovery, just like everybody except Steve, who's listening in as our producer. But I love that about you because you've been a glowing example of like what channeling your addiction, right? And I want to really talk about that, really, because I want to know more about what happened early on, but I want to know how the addict Aubrey turned into the positive, the PMA, whatever you want to call it, and got addicted to the lifestyle that you chose to live. Which now I see you guys, you have a beautiful family, great mom, you're jacked, focused, great, all of it. It's just amazing to watch you. But it wasn't always that way.
Right. Yeah. Even hearing you say all that, I know there was a point in time where that would have made me so uncomfortable to hear all that. But it's almost like when you do enough work and you guys get it, that that's true, that you're living your truth. And it used to make me really uncomfortable to hear people say nice things about me. And there was a period in my life where I thought, I'm a terrible mom. I hated myself. I did not trust myself with my own child. And to go all the way here where I can say I'm the best mom I know, I am the best mom for my child, is a miracle. So I'm happy to talk about it because there's so many people that I know are living in that hell or know people who are living in that hell, and you don't always hear the success stories. And it's always a work in progress, of course, as you guys know. So I don't do it perfect. And that's one thing that I really wanted to tell people is you don't have to do it perfect. I've relapsed. I definitely have my weaknesses. I have my things that I need to work on. But that all or nothing thinking used to get me stuck over and over because I would just throw in the towel and I would say, I knew it. Like I knew I couldn't get this. So I'll just go back to the beginning. When I grew up in a family that, we were comfortable. It was one of those situations where anything I asked for Christmas, I got. Anytime I needed something, I called Dad. Dad would bail me out. Dad would give me money. And in a way, I think that was his love language, was providing for his family. So no fault to him. But you can imagine years later when I'm in my addiction, just the chaos that calls, because I could call him and just say, hey, I'm in trouble again. I need you to bail me out, basically. And time again, he would bail me out. And somewhere along my journey as a child, I did feel different. I felt a lot of times like I couldn't breathe. I don't know if you guys felt that way, almost like just uncomfortable in your own skin. But I couldn't ever pinpoint what it was, but I felt feelings really intensely. So, like, my family used to pick on me, because they would just say, "You're so emotional, like, you get upset so easy." But still to this day, I just feel really intensely. And I've learned to really appreciate that because it's allowed me to go really deep with people and connect to people on such a powerful level. And so now that's one of those qualities I can be grateful for. And I see that in a lot of addicts, recovering addicts, especially. I can see that carry over and they just do amazing things with their lives. So, fast forward a little bit, I actually got really addicted to religion at a young age. I was really involved in church. I found a connection at that age that was very powerful for me. And to this day, I've learned to take what I need from that time in my life and kind of leave the hurt and the pain that came from it. Because even though it was a great place and I had this beautiful church family, stuff started happening. I started seeing sides of these adults that I looked up to and I put on a pedestal. And there was some messed up stuff that started happening. And I know that does not happen in all churches. In no way am I saying that religion is bad. This is just my story. So it meant a lot to me, church growing up. And, you know, I kind of got into this dogma with my mentality on it where I thought I'm either good or bad. I'm either doing what's right or I'm doing what's wrong. And as you guys know, for the addict brain, that can be a very harsh feeling. So when we do stuff bad, it's like we feel this extra shame about it. And so as a kid, I just felt really bad. I started feeling really bad about myself and about hell and just everything. I felt dark.
Mm.
And my sisters had started partying. They were older than me. And I started getting into the alcohol a little bit. And I remember the first night I drank, I had like 12 beers, which now I know that's not normal on your first night ever drinking to have 12 beers.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm like a 13-year-old girl, 12 or 13-year-old girl. So, um, but I remember I didn't get sick or anything, but I felt euphoric. I felt like, okay, I'm good. Like I found the solution. And this was day one of ever drinking anything. I was like, this is it. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I had chased that. It turned that switch on that you guys are familiar with. And so for years started chasing that, but I had this religion in the back of my head saying, you're wrong, you're bad, you're sinful, you're going to hell. And it was just this shame-based relationship I ended up having with God. So I finally reached out for help as a young teen. I was about 14, 15 years old. There was a guy in my church, the only guy I knew that talked out loud about addiction. And I was like, I need to talk to this guy. He was, the worship leader, the youth leader of the church. We developed this strong bond. And he helped me a lot. If I felt like drinking, I would call him. So he knew stuff about me that no one else knew. And I didn't see it at the time, but I started to isolate with this person and I started to only trust this one person. And I feel like for anyone who's listening that's ever been in sort of a power dynamic relationship with someone, this is how it happens. You start to feel really isolated from everyone. You start to feel like that's the only person you can talk to. And so I trusted him with like my life. And there was one night and it changed everything for me. And this is really where my story starts, in my opinion. So I was about to drink one night and I called him and I was like, I feel like drinking. Cause that's what he said. He's like, call me, I don't want you to ever feel like you have to go back there. And so he said, you know what, you'll be safe with me, come by the church. Long story short, I ended up waking up butt naked in the back of this church and no recollection of it, just blackout drunk. He had ended up giving me alcohol. And I was really confused by that because I was a 16-year-old girl and I was just kind of like, I trusted him. And it sounds really weird. It's like kind of this backward cycle, but anybody who's been abused, especially as a teenager or a child, you don't see it coming. Like you don't see that grooming process happening. I kind of wish that it was something that we learned about more is like what to look out for with grooming. And so when that happened, when I woke up that morning, everything was different. Like everything. I could not look people in the eye. I had to like look at the ground, and I stayed high for probably at least 5 years, just every single day. No matter like whatever I could get my hands on, I would put in my body. I mean, to the
Wow.
point where I remember being in college and I would like dump paint in these plastic bags and like huff paint, just anything to like get me out of my head. I could not sit in a room by myself. And so this was awful. I couldn't hug people. I was just really angry. So the only time I felt okay was when I was drunk, high, altered in some way. If I was in my own skin, I was dying. Like I wanted to kill myself when I was in my own skin. And that just continued and continued. And I did all the cliche things. I, changed towns. I hung out with different people. I got in and out of relationships, and I would be okay for a while, and then it would get bad again. And so something that changed everything for me was I got pregnant with my son when I was in college. I was an undergrad for business administration, and I got pregnant. And that was a big whiplash for me. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is going to change everything for me. I'm going to have this baby and I'm going to change. I thought it was going to be like one of those stories you see in the movies, the child saved her. And I did change for a few months until I picked up again. And it started just with smoking weed, just one time smoking weed, and it just lit that back up. I was right back there. So that was very shameful. I don't know if you guys ever like had kids in active addiction, but it's awful. Because you're looking at this life that is literally your heart beating outside of your chest, and it's like it's not enough to stop me. It's just not enough to stop me. I don't love him enough to stop me. But years later, I would learn that the only thing stronger than my love for my child is my addiction. That's the only thing stronger than that love. And once I accepted that, I could do something about it. But I didn't know people recovered. Like I didn't know there was Justin's. I didn't know there was Jake's. Like I did not know that there was recovery stories. I just knew about the guys that were rotting in the AA rooms. I just figured it was like old men smoking cigarettes sitting around. And I was like, that's not me.
Same.
That's just,
Same.
you thought that?
Oh yeah, for years. And I've told Justin this, I've never been there. I just asked Dane about it on the last episode. Was really like, I never even knew what a program, just from what you see in the movies. So I was always like, do I have a problem? Am I one of those guys? And you really have to think to yourself, like, is that me? And in reality, yeah, you're in addicts and addicts and addicts. So it's really like, I know what you mean.
I mean, the thing is that definitely does exist, right? Where there is like old, grumpy, sober dudes, drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes in a room. And it's your perception on AA. It changes when it's like court ordered, or it's something that like your family tells you to do. And then when you go in willingly, there's a big difference between those, and when you go in willingly and you go out and you try to find the right meeting and the meeting that you actually fit in, because every meeting's a little bit different. Maybe some of them are structured the same. Like for me, like I don't go to mixed meetings. I only go to stags. So all dudes. And I'm pretty specific to the Alano club that I go to in Newport. That I know my guys there. I like the level of success that's in there. I like the years that they've accumulated. And I like the guy that usually closes it out. He always gets me fired up. So but when I first got in the rooms, it was because the judge told me to go, but
Yeah.
and then it was like, oh, I'm just here because I have to be. Let me get my court card signed, and and then I can leave. But now it's a totally different story.
It really is such a different attitude because I didn't even mention this, but I totaled a bunch of cars in active addiction. I just kept wrecking cars.
A bunch of cars. 8 cars.
Yeah.
Daddy did love you.
I know. And he would always say, this is the last one. The next one's on you. And then it would happen again. This is the last one. The next one's on you. So lots of DWI classes. I remember being in front of the judge, and I was on my 3rd DWI technically. And so I was terrified, of course, because you can get lots of years in prison for that. And she just looked at me and she was so puzzled. She's like, this is a problem. Like, do you know you have a problem? And I mean, deep down, I did, but we're scared at that time because I couldn't see life sober. I was like,
Yeah.
I could not see that. I hadn't had it since I was like 11. So I'm like, what? No, I don't have a problem. I couldn't admit it yet. But there was a lot of just court orders, jails, couple of rehabs. And my breaking point really came with my son when I ended up wrecking with him in the car. And this is something that I used to not be able to talk about, but I'm finding the more I talk about it, the more I connect very authentically with people. And I have like women that come forward and say, I was in a similar situation, or yeah, I'm struggling right now and I have kids. Because there's also this shame, I think, about being a mom. Like you see, there's like this cliche that there's the drunk dad or like old alcoholic men, but I don't know about you guys, and maybe it's just because I am a woman, but I feel like there's just a little more of like a stigma against moms. I
Oh,
don't know.
I'm even guilty of that too, because like I know a woman that lives locally around here that she's like just had a baby, and this chick gets shit faced and drives around with the
Yeah.
newborn baby in the car, and I'm like, what? But in my head, I'm like, do you know how reckless I was? Like all the time. Like, how do I judge her ever? But because she's a mom, you're like, there is a difference. I mean, there's not a difference, but our mindset is totally different in that. It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm honestly just as guilty of it. Even I was doing that stuff and I would see other women that maybe just didn't dress it up as much. Like maybe they didn't have their hair and their makeup done that day or something. And I would be like, oh, well, at least I'm not, like this gal, but
Yeah,
at
it
least
is
I do
funny.
my
Like,
hair.
yeah, it is like the level that you put on like your rock bottom or even your current situation. I mean, my hometown, there's a bunch of women driving around high on Xanax and wine and everything, picking their kids up from school, and it's like you're worse off to drive than a guy that's like fucked up on meth and crack and stuff like that. You're like actually you could fall asleep at the wheel at any moment. Like you look like shit. But
Totally. And you guys probably have heard how I guess what they've seen in research is women are way worse than men once they start. Like statistically speaking, apparently women who use that end up becoming addicted, it's like 80% worse than it
Hmm.
usually is for men. At least I've heard that before. I don't know if y'all have heard that.
I
well,
have not.
yeah, but on the flip side, more men are. I think addiction is more male dominated. But I didn't know that the actual like level of how addicted somebody is worse.
Hmm.
Yeah. Though, Justin, I think it's a closet issue still. I almost wonder if just as many women are, if it's just they're just not comfortable yet still.
Yeah, yeah,
Could
that
be.
could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
So, Aubrey, when
Um,
did fitness really come into the picture? Like, not to jump ahead of myself, but like, I know it's going to be good. So I'm like, when did all this kind of transform for you?
that's what I was going to say because I don't like to stay in the icky part for too long. I like talking about this stuff. So after I got in my wreck, something shifted. I woke up handcuffed to a hospital bed for like the third time or something. And I'll never forget there's this police sitting in the corner and he was looking at in the corner of the wall. And I was so angry when I woke up. I'm like, God, why am I still here? Come on. Like, why did you not just let me go?
Mm.
And I remember yelling at this police. And I'm like, why aren't you looking at me? And he said, ma'am, you don't have any clothes on. And I looked down and I didn't. I had like the little tubes all stuck to me. And I'm like, man, when did this happen? But I said something in that moment, and it must have been like my highest self coming through. And I said, I'm not a bad mom. I'm just really sick. I don't know how I knew that, but like a part of me believed that. And I think hearing myself say that was the first glimmer of hope where I was like, yeah, like I am sick. Okay, if I'm sick, I need to get well. As basic as that sounds, it was the first time I kind of thought that way. So when I got home, of course, I was withdrawing, and I told my parents immediately, I said, I need you to take Tristan, my son, so I can go get well. I've got to get into rehab. This was my second time in rehab. And I was like, you know what? Like, I've got to do this. So I advocated for myself. And it was the first time I had done that. That was the shift. Because before, people would advocate for me, people would step in. But this time I was like, I don't care what anyone says. I have to get well. And I checked myself into a treatment facility, a 90-day program this time, because I was so scared. Like, you guys know that feeling. You're just scared of yourself. So I needed to be away. And what I did, just like I'm doing with Justin and Jake, I looked for people who had what I wanted. And I'm like, okay, they were where I was. Now they're not. They're doing amazing things. It's possible. So I didn't even look at the losers, not to use a harsh word, but I didn't even focus on people that were messing around in rehab, or, people at meetings that just wanted to date everybody. I was fully in the solution. Like, my motive was to change everything. And that's what it took. It's, I only had to change one thing, everything. It's just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
And so I did, like, I took direction for the first time ever. And what I did when I was in rehab, I was in the extended program, I found the gym. And I'd been athletic, but I'd played sports before and stuff, but there was just this energy around the gym. Like, I don't know if you guys, when y'all found it, but I
And
couldn't stay out of it.
and how old were you at this time? What was the time frame
Okay,
there?
so I was 23, maybe 24, 24.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was just this little dinky gym there, but I just wanted to be in it all the time, because they give you therapy, you talk it out, but that shit was in my body. I mean, the trauma, the grief, like, it was cellular. And there was no amount of talking that could really get rid of all of it. So training felt right. Like, training felt like what I was supposed to be doing. And it didn't make sense. Like, I was broke as hell. I should have been looking for a job, but luckily I had dad to call. And I spent hours in there every day. When I got out of treatment, I went to this Oxford house. It's like a sober living house. The women hated me. Like, I think it's because they thought that I thought I was better than them, but it wasn't. I was just so scared of getting drunk or getting high. I lived in the gym. So I would get up at 5, I would go to the gym. I would go to meetings. I would meet with a sponsor. I was just always doing self-help, because if I sat there for too long, I would be crazy. I was still crazy. We're crazy for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Still
I'm
a
still to this
little.
day.
So crazy.
Yeah. But, like, we channel it now. I love the topic of channeling addiction the right way, because you really can. You really,
Yeah.
really can. I think there's things that we can do that normal people can't really do.
No, absolutely. I say it all the time. I'd take an addict over anybody.
Yeah.
An addict in recovery, I would take over anybody. Especially when that addict finds purpose, and when that addict actually, figures it out. Yeah, it's just facts.
And I didn't understand that until I truly saw it with this community, which we'll get into. But yeah, when you used to say that, Justin, I'm like, what is he talking about? Why would he choose that? But now meeting so many, and then making a point that I was one once as well, it makes a whole lot of sense, because we just think different. You know what I mean? So it makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, you look at, like, you would go to end, like, you look at, like, a crackhead that would, like, literally get on a fucking bus and take it 45 minutes across town, just to score, no shoes on, no shirt on. Like, look at the people that walk around here in Huntington that are like, like, what's going on in their heads? How far did they travel just to get a rock? Like, and that's on a whole nother level, right? But still, like, the things that I would do: stay up all night, wait for the dope man to call me back, get in my car wasted, drive up to the spot where I'd meet him up, at 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, just to get my fix before going to work. Like, that's a committed motherfucker.
Amazing work ethic.
Amazing work ethic. Yeah. And then you look at it and it's like, I'd score my bag of Coke, and it's like, do you think I would just do, like, a little bit? Like, no, I'm going to run through that whole entire bag.
Back
then
to
I'm going
work.
to do yours, and then back to work, and then I'm going to go get more, and I'm going to do yours and everybody else's around me. I mean, again, it's like, you take that level of addiction and you find something that, because at the end of the day, we're looking for, stimulation. We're looking for oxytocin, serotonin. We're looking for like all of these things. So when it comes to like things like success, and especially in cokeheads, because like alpha type people, okay, there's a chemical that gets released in our brain when we do cocaine, okay, right? This is very common knowledge. The same chemical that gets released when we do cocaine is the same chemical that releases when we make a lot of money or close a deal.
I feel that so hard. And I'm really glad you guys tied it into this, because I was thinking, my mentor before, he was an amazing coach. He really is. Like, I have nothing bad to say about him, but I think he doesn't understand the addict mind. So I was working myself in circles and working with people I had no business working with, because I wanted to. I wanted the money. I wanted not even just that, I wanted to have an impact. But I was working myself into the ground and I was miserable. And when I met you guys and I found out that you guys were basically all in recovery, that was another reason why I did trust you, actually, because I thought they can guide my brain. Like, you guys, it's not just the business side, like, how I think. So that was huge for me.
Yeah.
Only the broken can fix the broken, and like, and when you feel comfortable around people, like nowadays, most of my friends are in recovery, and I love it.
It really, I mean, I guess you do attract your tribe when you start showing up as yourself.
Yeah. Well, it goes to say, like I told you, like I never went to recovery or in a program because I didn't think I needed it, but I was still drinking. I was still partying when I got into JWFIT. And as I got more, into the group and meeting these guys and being on the meetings and hearing stories, it just led me to stay away from it. You know what I mean? Like now my last drink was in May. And it really goes to show, like, this was my recovery. This is what I've been looking for. So I never had to really go, do I have to check myself in? If I continue drinking, do I have a problem? We all have the problem. But for me, getting into this was my program. This is what I was looking for, to just finally go, I'll have a drink or I'll quit one day, to finally, like, I don't need a drink. And just like he said, like,
you need something better.
100%.
You need something better. 100. I love when Jordan B. Peterson. Yeah, I mean, it is. Jordan B. Peterson says that all the time. Drinking is a hell of a time. It's a blast, no doubt about it. You need something better.
Yeah.
Like fucking dumb, simple shit. But that's really it.
Yeah.
I find clarity. I find confidence. Like, I like the fact that I am so laser focused at all times.
Yeah, you all have had a major impact on me with that focus and channeling that, because I haven't even shared this with many people. Jake, I might have shared this with you, but when I first started coaching online, every few months there was this pattern that would happen. I would go drink, and I didn't feel like I could share it with anybody, because I had gotten about 5 years clean at one point and then kind of scooted out of the rooms. And I was looking for more, looking back. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's not that I wanted to leave 12-step, but it's that I wanted to enhance my life a little more. But I couldn't really find how to do that. And working myself into the ground before, the way that other people were doing it, wasn't working. But you guys, and every few months I would relapse. I would get overwhelmed and I would feel like I was drowning and I would relapse. But since being with JW, I don't feel that way. And it's because I'm being real.
Yeah. That's 100%. That is it.
It's nice waking up and not having to put on a mask.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because even every sales call, every coaching call, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I doing who they need me to be? Instead of, am I working with like the right people? Do I have the right people on the bus?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
That's my favorite thing right now.
Yeah.
That's one of those things. I told you I'm totally jumping in your pocket. Any book Justin reads, I read. Any movie Justin watches, I watch.
Did you see Wonka yet? Did you see Wonka yet?
Oh God, Wonka. It was sad. It was. Listen, it was good, but I'm like, a lot of people don't know this about me, and they're gonna find out on this podcast, and it's totally off topic. I am the biggest Charlie and the Chocolate Factory fan.
Interesting.
I never would have pictured that. Really?
Never would have pictured. Oh yeah. I like the Johnny Depp.
Did Steve know that? Steve, did you know that? No? Awesome.
Yeah.
Isn't there like 10
Huge.
movies now?
Well, there's three. There's the newest one, which is really like I'm just gonna say it. It's really fruity, but like it's all dancing and like I didn't like that one. The Gene, what is it? Gene Hackman one. Is
Yeah.
that who it is? Or yeah, Gene. Yeah, yeah, that one is fantastic. And the Johnny Depp one is really good as well. That was I think Tim
The Tim
Burton.
Burton.
Yeah, but I love that story. I love that story. It just drives me crazy. I just love it.
Do you live vicariously through them for a little bit? Just like you can taste all the candy in your mouth while you're
Well, I
watching
love
it?
candy. I love candy,
I do
but
too.
I think I just like this. Like I did not grow up like I grew up in a really good family, very prosperous lifestyle, and all of that. So I cannot even relate to Charlie Bucket, right? I can't at all. But for something about this like underdog story of this kid who really had the same odds, like honestly, no, the odds were stacked against him, right? Like you had these people that were buying up tons of chocolate. You
Hmm.
know, the one, what's her name? Veruca Salt's dad like owned like the peanut shop, and he had all of his staff ripping up candy bars and to find the ticket, right? Like the odds were stacked so far against him,
Yeah.
and he still landed on it by chance, which it really, if you really look into it, it wasn't by chance. It was set up for him to actually be there. He was being watched. But either way, it was just a really good story.
It was a good
Um,
movie.
but I can't
Gene
relate.
Wilder. Gene Wilder, not Gene Hackman. Gene
Gene
Wilder.
Wilder. God, golly, yeah. I said how big
Well,
of a fan I was, and then I just busted myself.
I didn't realize, Justin, that you came from that because it's funny you say that. I wasn't even planning on going this direction, but one thing that gets in my head is I come from a pretty solid background. Like, you hear stories about a lot of addicts coming from broken homes and kind of being the underdog and the comeback story. And I couldn't relate to that. And I thought, how weak am I that here I've been set, like the platform's been set for me, and yet I'm just diving off headfirst,
Yeah.
like just screwing it up.
Yeah, no,
But
my life was pretty much all set up for me from day one, um and I like resisted. I resisted for the longest time, and I don't really think it matters um what level of trauma or what. I think addiction can be spiked by a lot of things. Obviously we know if we come from an addicted household, then odds are we're probably going to end up. You're typically a product of your environment, right? And but my family, like my mom's not an alcoholic. She's probably gone um long, I don't know, long periods of time drinking, but still not like a real dependent on alcohol person. Not at all today. I don't even think she drinks at all. My dad drinks a lot. He parties a lot, but he also will take like months off and stuff like that. But when he goes in, he goes in. Um, for me though, uh, I got in a really bad boating accident with my brother when we were young. I was 15, he was 10, and I think that was about how old we were, and he died, and with me and with him in my arms, and he like it was a whole helicopter, like U.S. Coast Guard, like a whole thing that they had to revive him in the helicopter, and we had to drive all the way back to our hometown from our lake house that we were at. And I drove all the way home with my dad. It was a 2.5 hour drive. And we didn't even know if my brother was alive. And it was like a really, really tough time. And I was getting blamed for it the whole entire time. And that whole year of our life, that was really rough. So um, when I look back at it, my life wasn't traumatic at all. That was really the only trauma I think that I ever sustained. um, but I wonder, like I always wonder, what was it that set off what was, you have a very good, you were betrayed by somebody that you had trusted, that was a resource to your addiction and to your alcohol, right?
You cut there for a minute.
oh, sorry, it cut for a second.
No, did I?
You did, yeah.
I was
Am I
watching
back?
Jake to see if he was
You're back.
still moving, and I was like, okay, good. Yeah.
Oh shoot, we'll have to edit that out.
Yeah, we can edit.
Thank you. Where did I leave off?
The trauma, like finding the trauma after your dad was blaming you or whatever.
I think that was really the only trauma that I ever really sustained looking back. And like I was saying, like, you know, the difference is like your level of trauma makes a lot of sense, right? I was a 15-year-old kid, and still when that happened, like I was also really involved in the church. I was also a worship leader, like, you know, the whole deal. And in Christian metal bands and all that stuff. So like I had like all my friends at the church. My best friend was the pastor's kid, like, you know, very, like, everybody was like taking care of me while my brother was sitting in the hospital for months and months and months on end. And it was so I had all the support and stuff. And when I got out of that situation, I did not like it. I still was great. I still didn't drink a lot. I still didn't really party a lot until like right before college. You know, high school, I would party here and there and stuff like that, but I had better things to think about. I didn't really want to get fucked up. College, I started drinking heavily.
Yeah.
I think it gets tricky too, because I don't think there's any level of trauma. There's no way to really understand how various levels of trauma are going to affect our brain. Like, that's what I tell the women I work with. I'm like, it's not about comparing like whose story was worse or was your trauma really bad or not. I mean, you handle it the way you handle it. Like if you, you know, you have some kids that just get yelled at as kids a little bit. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that, but they might react the same way to that as, you know, something a lot more significant for another person, from what I've seen, at least working with women.
Yeah.
No, and that's why I only go to stag meetings, because in the mixed meetings, it's always like dudes that are like trying to puff their chest for all the shit that they went through and they did, and you know, it's the same. But
What is that? Because I think, is that like a California thing? What kind of
yeah.
meeting is that?
Stag?
Yeah.
Stags are like if it's all men or all women.
It's co-ed or non.
Oh,
Yeah.
because
I
I
don't go
hear
to.
y'all have some interesting stuff like Cocaine Anonymous and or like
Oh, yeah.
different versions of
Pills
recovery,
Anonymous,
right?
all of it. Pills Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, yeah, all of them.
That's so interesting to me because see, here
Recovery
in
is
North
huge
Carolina,
here.
we just have AANA.
Yeah, recovery is massive here.
I heard. That's why I've got to get out there. I'm going to come visit you guys. It's happening. I'm manifesting it.
Well, you're coming out to Vegas, so
Yeah, I'm going to make it halfway there in a few months and then I'll make it all the way.
yeah.
But
So
it really, I mean, just to me, the blessing just in meeting you guys and being able to use my story and Justin, like you giving me that permission to just be myself. I mean, it's just huge. Like, I know it sounds silly that I needed permission, but that's why it was just so such an impactful thing for me, as I never had anyone like encouraging me to the whole world to be myself and to tell my
yeah, but
story.
you say that out of respect because you can be coached. I don't look at like I chuckled to myself when I was like, permission, like you don't need your permission to be yourself. But at the same time, like when you hire a mentor, having and that you respect, and again, this isn't me tooting my horn, but when you hire a mentor or a coach, you're looking to be coached. And I think a lot of people are like they hire somebody to help them with something, but they don't buy into the whole entire program. Maybe financially they buy in, but mentally they don't. And then they wonder why they don't succeed.
More often than not, probably. Because, I mean, even in recovery, coaching programs, anything, I see that a lot. And I'm the type of person, ever since that happened, ever since I wrecked and I woke up and I was ready to do everything different, I really suck out people that, like, I looked for people who had what I wanted. And I mean, that's you guys in as far as coaching. So it's just, to me, it's a relief to find somebody that's better than me in a certain area because I can get better. I don't always want to be at the top.
No, yeah. I mean, you set a glass ceiling for yourself when you're that, right? I mean, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. That's for sure.
Mm-mm. No, never.
So moving forward, you know, you get sober, you find fitness. Now, from what I understand, you're a hell of a bodybuilder.
Okay, I would love to talk about this topic. So, what I
I
teach,
assume that this is channeling your addiction, right? I mean, A
Yeah.
lot of people that are in bodybuilding and in strength training at this level, a lot of people did struggle with something. It's funny because we talk about like the breakup, like people that they break up like I got to get to the gym, I got to rebound quick, or like we find our addiction, we channel it into the gym, things like that. And I assume that's the direction that you went.
Yeah, absolutely. And addiction, relationships, no matter what it is, I just use trauma as the umbrella. Like life is traumatic. So no matter who you are, you've been through something. For me, it was a mix of things, as you guys know. And when I found the gym, I noticed that I felt better when I left. And I noticed, especially if I could get myself back in that state that I was in during the trauma, when I was upset, when I was freaking out, and I released that while I trained, it was really powerful. So I love teaching women and men how to do that now. You get yourself back in that state. So through visualization, maybe listening to music that you used to listen to at that time, something to take you back where you're feeling that feeling, you're back in those shoes. And then I trained from that place. I didn't know that was a thing at the time. It felt right. It felt right to get angry when I would train or to get sad when I would train. And now moving forward, I've actually learned, like even through my degree in counseling, that that's a real thing. Authentic movement, like working out that trauma out of your body. So to me, that complements therapy or 12-step, maybe even more so for a lot of us. And so that's what I did. I just leaned into my training. And people kept asking, they're like, you should do a show. And I didn't know what that meant. I'm like, what is this show? What is this show? And then they started telling me about bodybuilding, and everyone kept saying, you should do figure. And I didn't know what that was. So I started looking at pictures online and I was like, oh, I should do this. Like I wasn't training for that. I was just training to release a bunch of shit basically, but it worked. It just fit. So I ended up competing. I got second at my first show and took a couple years, got married, found the love of my life, who is just the best partner I ever could have asked for. And I think that's what's really cool too, is in this process, like God, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, like you're guided more. Like I was guided to you guys. And I feel like when you're not using drugs, you're not looking for quick fixes, you're actually putting in the work, you're being your honest self, and you're trying your hardest and serving others, you just end up in the situations you're supposed to be in. So met my husband. Yeah, sorry, I get on a roll when I start talking about this
you're
stuff.
good. You're good. I like your husband. I've only met him a couple of times, but he seems like he's just all support, and he seems really laid back.
He is, and he needs to be, because I'm yeah. Well, I won't even deny.
He's in recovery too?
He is, yeah. And I really admire him just as a man and a partner, because we're all 50-50. Like he doesn't expect me to do more with the kid. And it's not even, Tristan's not his biological son. And we split everything, like responsibilities, workload. It's really cool. Cause I think a lot of couples struggle with that. Like women being in the workforce, still expected to do everything at home with the kids is a lot. So he's awesome. Yeah. Really so cool. Just all these things kept happening. And then when I went pro, it was at the same time that I was going to school to get my master's in mental health counseling. So that was a big year. Pro card, IFBB pro card, master's in mental health counseling. And I was looking at these two things and I'm like, what the hell? Like, what am I going to do? These don't fit. That's what I was thinking at the time. But fast forward to today, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for my education, my experience, and just bodybuilding, because now it helps me work with women in a way that I never thought I could. It's just really cool, because you guys know psychology is everything.
Yeah. There's more mindset than it is fitness and nutrition. I mean, really.
Yeah. And I've never really resonated with coaches that say, just do it because I say so. Or if you want it bad enough, you'll do it. I believe that to an extent, but I also think we have significant mental blocks when we first start this. And to me, I think it's fun to, help women break those down.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of help,
go ahead, Jake.
I was going to say, and speaking of helping other women, I actually, for the viewers watching, I hired Aubrey to train my wife, Angela, because it was that time to take that next step, and not to give anything away from our other coaches, but we had people in the area, in our local area, that, you know, were personal trainers reaching out, and I could have found one, but I saw something in Aubrey at that time, just from bringing her on and having that time with her, like building some of her ads and getting to know her a little bit more, and just her addictive personality. It was like, it was meant to be. And I have to say, I'm nothing but impressed with this girl and her work ethic when it comes to training Angela, because it takes a whole lot of load off of a husband. If anyone has a significant other that tries to train them, it's very difficult. So Aubrey has made it so nice and universal for Angela. It's going great. So I truly appreciate you for that.
Yeah, Angela said she was really stoked last time I saw her.
Yeah,
That
you're
means
doing.
You know, I love this story of people who find the gym, find fitness when they get sober. You know, that's not how it worked for me. I have two interesting things about drugs, fitness, and everything that is like totally backwards to the rest of the world. Oxycontin saved my life, and I got jacked and in the best shape of my life way before I got sober.
Wait. Can you? I need to hear this. Wait, Al.
Oxycontin saved my life. So I there was a point in my life where I had a huge opiate addiction, but it was to Norcos. And it started with 2, you know, then turned into 4, then turned into 6, then turned into 30, 40, 10s a day. And I was destroying my body. And I had a doctor that I could manipulate. The same doctor that prescribes all those moms that drive around fucked up on Xanax in my hometown. He would give me whatever I wanted, right? And he might as well just given me his prescription pad. And so it got to the point where he was like, Jay, you are taking way too many Norcos. He's like, bro, you're going to blow your stomach out. You're going to blow your kidneys out, everything else. He's like, we got to switch you to Oxycontin. So I was like, so he switched me to Oxycontin, and I went to get my first prescription of Oxycontin, and fucking Heath Ledger died. And I really liked Heath Ledger and all of that. But the one thing that I like really, because I used to love drinking on Norcos. I loved drinking on Norcos. I would take 10 of them and, you know, slam a bunch of Jack and whatever. And I like, that was my thing. I go down to my studio in my basement and play music for hours and hours and hours on end. And when he switched me to Oxycontin, Heath Ledger died. And at the time I was also taking benzos pretty heavily. Okay. Now my dumbass didn't realize that the level of Norco that I was taking was way beyond the level of opiate that Oxycontin was, way beyond what they would have prescribed me to. But in my eyes, it was that exact mix of benzo, Oxycontin, and booze. That's what killed Heath Ledger. So I took Oxycontin exactly as prescribed, like terrified of that drug. And I eventually, it stopped serving its purpose. So I was like, this doesn't even work anymore. This is stupid. And I just gave it up with a little bit of withdrawal, but that was it. And I never went back to opiates really again. You know, there were little times, like weeks where, like, you know, I'd get hurt and I'd get a prescription to Norco and I would abuse it. And then when I was done with it, I was done with it. But yeah, it never became a thing. Where like tons of people like were getting hooked on Oxycontin and it ruining their lives. It actually really helped me not like really break an addiction to opiates because it just stopped serving.
When did the rippage happen? When did you get shredded?
So we started going to music festivals a lot, and there were like all these dudes that were jacked and getting fucked up, and I was like, that's sweet. I want to be jacked and get fucked up. So I got like in the best shape of my life, and it was like by any means necessary. You know, I was mixing things, tren, all of it. I was like, I'll just take whatever to get me fucking there, and I just took whatever to get me there, and then it was like, you know, it wasn't a good look.
I was going to say it is sort of backwards because I went through that phase too, where there were certain drugs that would make me look a lot more like I wanted to look. And then it's kind of messed up because you have people coming up and saying, oh, you look good. Like, have you lost some weight? At least for me, I did. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll just keep doing this because it makes me look better.
Yeah, no, it definitely was, you know, it was not the healthy way to go about it. You know, my weight loss though, I mean, no matter how many PEDs you take, it's not, you still have to eat right. You still have to, so like my diet was on point. I trained every morning, no matter how hungover, how fucked up I was. I went to the gym 5 a.m., sometimes earlier, 4 a.m. Even if I was up till 2, I would just sleep for 2 hours and go to the gym and train. So like, there's no doubt, like everybody that knew me was like, I don't know how he fucking does it. He just gets up and goes. If I had to blow a line off my center console in the parking lot of the gym, I did it. And I really went. So I really put in the work and lost 100 pounds while I was drinking and using. But then I took my health to another level when I got sober. And that was when it was like, I stopped with all the crazy stuff, and I'll be transparent. I run TRT, and all of that, but I would stopped with the heavy stuff, stopped with all that shit. And really started to focus in on, obviously I'm sober. I don't touch any drugs or anything like that. So that none of that shit's really necessary any longer. And my body feels good again. But when I was getting jacked and using, I felt like shit all the time.
Yeah, it's a completely different feeling, the level of energy. I wasn't even going to touch on this, but I do TRT too. And I just started a couple years ago through a doctor, of course. And I think that's something that a lot of men too, don't realize that they probably need to get on top of. Like, I'm not saying if you eat like shit and exercise like a jerk that, you automatically need to go get on hormone replacement therapy. But to me, like when I work with women and their nutrition's on point and their training's on point and they feel like crap, they have no energy and they can't lose weight or lose fat, I should say, it's usually the hormone issue. So I'm glad you touched on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had low testosterone when I started, and Jake, you've talked about it too. And I just think
many times.
The one thing I'm so friggin' sick of is like the natty or not people. Like, the only people that care if you're natty or not, or what do they say? No, that's not it. The difference between people who are natty and people who are not natty is not natty people don't care if you're natty. Like, who gives a shit?
Nobody.
I know. And organizations like the OCB organization, I respect it because I get it. Like, you want to compete against people who, have no enhancement whatsoever. But anytime a client does OCB, it's such a pain in the ass, if I'm being honest, because we have to go back 10 years and make sure like it's just so picky. It's crazy. And then of course they can't be on hormone replacement therapy, even if they need it, which is kind of annoying. I mean, because at that point, it's almost a health issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I spoke on this on a podcast, and I was frightened for years. I was diagnosed at 32 years old. It was right after we had my ex-wife had our first baby. And I remember I was so insecure about taking it because back then it wasn't really heard of at that young of age, but being in a heavy metal band, destroying my body for 10 years, I mean, it was bound to happen. I lived a very rough life. So for me, I wouldn't tell anybody. I was so secretive about it up until probably like my mid 30s when other friends were asking me about symptoms and stuff, and it came out, and I'm like, yeah, it started with like libido and your energy and just your whole depression, anxiety. It really took a toll on your hormones. So I'd talk to friends. I'm like, why don't you go get checked? Like, oh, I don't do roids, and they kind of give you that look like they were steroids. And I'm like, no, bro, like this is your health. Like, you're telling me all these symptoms, like fix it. Now in my 40s, it's a lot easier. More guys are now, and since doing that podcast, I've gotten hit up quite a bit and given out some numbers to some good resources. But again, this goes to people not talking about these issues, or they abuse it, and they don't, it needs to be spoken of a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
Did you feel like you didn't realize how bad you felt until you got on the TRT?
Oh, and I could feel it when I'm off the TRT. I've tried to jump off and do it the natural way, but it was just too low. It wasn't worth my health. So I keep it at a very steady level. I don't abuse it. Justin knows, like I've dealt with some issues just within these 8 months, because as we get older, we find out more problems. We find out inflammation, gut inflammation, and all these things that take a toll with hormones. So you've got to be very cautious, and you've got to get it checked. And I go every 3 months to get my blood work, and I dump blood every 3 months. So I truly feel people need to start finding a good resource. Not all doctors are the same, but you got to find a good physician that's willing to talk to you and know his stuff about hormones. They can't just listen to the trainer at LA Fitness and go, bro, here, take this from Johnny down. Jonathan always says, Johnny down the street. You've got to get it checked, and you've got to get it on point. And I suggest that for anybody in their 30s before they get to my age and have even further, symptoms and problems.
Well, yeah, it's funny because I have a friend of mine who went to his doctor and he was like, man, I want to get my testosterone level checked and stuff like that. And he's like, the doctor was like, well, can you get it up? And he's like, well, yeah. He's like, then you're fine. And you're like, dude, like, how
that's the
stupid
worst.
are you?
Wow.
Crazy.
My first physician, I said it on the podcast, I had to fight. I was like, please, doc, you're young, you work out and this. And it's like, I can't have any more caffeine. I was already drinking like 3 Monsters to stay awake at 32 years old as a personal trainer, in good shape. I was running Spartans and I was like, but I would just fall asleep. And, it was just one of those, I wasn't drinking at that time either. And I finally, he was an older guy. So he just was like, oh, you're fine. And I said, please. And he ended up prescribing it. And I said the number was low. I'm talking like double digits. Like it was embarrassing low. Yeah, it was like low. And, again, the last podcast, I was so afraid to say that number, but I've met people now and they're in double digits. And I'm like, bro, like that, go please now, like right now. I've been able to get it naturally up into the 3 digits, but it's still low. And then most doctors, the problem is they'll tell you, 200 or 300 is a good number. And when in fact, like a 30, 40-year-old should be functioning at least 500, 6 to 7 is where I feel best. If I get to 9, I can feel it and I'm abusing, but I try and keep it around that 500 or 600. But a lot goes into your free testosterone and the other numbers, your LH, your FSH. So everything you have to get checked.
Yeah, I think too, people really do confuse it, like you're saying with steroids. They look at it as, oh, I'm taking drugs, and it almost becomes a pride issue where they're like,
Yeah.
especially for men, I think they're like, oh, I don't need that yet, or at least the ones I talk to, they're like, nope, I'm doing good on my own. I'm like, dude, you could feel a little better, just saying.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's not cheating. It's not cheating if you feel better and you're healthy.
Yeah, you're in normal range. You're not skyrocketed above range.
If someone's just taking in their 1200 constantly, it's like, bro, that's not good for the organs. So, but yeah, that's why you're a good. That's what I've noticed with you and Angela too. I mean, you're on point with supplements. You're open to stuff. We've got a great guy, Jonathan, who helps us with all of our stuff, and you just it's a good blend.
I'm really happy with. Thank you. And I mean, Angela's awesome. She's quickly becoming my homegirl, and I love working with her. And it's cool how what Jonathan's providing, it really does complement. Because sometimes I'll say, run it by Jonathan, but it really it's lining up. It's really cool.
Yeah. He definitely. I've been working with him for years now, and I just love the guy to death. I trust him and with everything I put in my body, and he's definitely really great. So, what I wanted to get at was, okay, so if you work specifically with women, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm a woman, let's just say, you can picture that, okay, and I want to sign up with you, what can I expect?
I love this question. Well, probably, so most women, I'll say this, most women think that they're going to get a nutrition plan and a training plan, and that is going to be what we jam on. That is part of it. You will obviously get a customized meal and nutrition plan, but the base of my program, the foundation, is mental. It's all about breaking through these mental barriers. So the first thing that we would do is we would look at the patterns. Like, why haven't you succeeded before? Of course, we would want to know your goal, but what is it that you keep running into that you're not breaking through? Because let's be honest, we can all download nutrition plans. We can all download training plans. There's tons. But the problem is 9 times out of 10, it's adherence. And it's not that you don't want it, but it's that there's a block, there's a mental block. So that's what we work with first. And that's through a lot of one-on-one, a lot of meetings. And through this time, of course, you're going to have your nutrition, your training plan. But every time you veer from that, what is it? Like, what leads up to that? Because you can't spot your own deception. So I give all my ladies, and Angela has one, it's these big overlooks of the week, and you rate each category. So things like sleep, nutrition, training, AM meditation, PM meditation. I look at that with you at the end of the week, along with your pictures. And I go, okay, you're getting a low score across the board in AM meditation. Maybe that's why your first meal is messed up. Your, workout after your first meal is half-assed. So you really see patterns that typically have nothing to do with what you think they have to do with. It's sort of like when you fall off a nutrition plan, you think, oh, I just didn't work hard enough. When the truth is, you might look back and realize you had dessert the night before and your cravings are out of control the next day. So to me, that's the cool part, is finding these patterns. And once we start to rewire those patterns and practice the opposite, everything changes. Everything changes. So really, if I could sum it up into one statement, it would just be going against the grain of what you've been doing is basically what we'll work on, is going against the grain, because that's what it feels like for a long time.
I love that, breaking barriers. And I think that is like, for me, it definitely was along the way. With the women that you work with, what barrier is typically the one? And do you find it more in excuse form or more in self-doubt form?
Self-doubt. Self-doubt. Because even the excuses, from what I found, is rooted in self-doubt. They don't believe in themselves. And that's really why I'm not one of those coaches that says, if you want this bad enough, you'll do it. Because most women already feel enough shame. Like, they already feel beat up. So I really don't feel a need to go in there and be like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why aren't you adhering to this? They're actually quite insecure a lot of times. I was when I first started. So I'm going to give an example, because this just happened. There was a lady who is having a hard time being consistent in her gym workouts. She'll work out at home, but her gym workouts, they're like half-assed. So I looked at them and I'm thinking, what's going on here? And it turns out she's scared. She's scared of the gym. So if a machine is taken, she won't wait for it. She won't ask. Yeah, she won't ask to work in. So that's the issue. It's not that she doesn't want it or she's not working hard when she has access to that equipment. She's scared of the gym. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, totally.
Okay.
I've seen that too.
And with self-doubt, you know what's funny though about the excuse thing? This seems to be the newest, because obviously there's a lot of self-help and a lot of motivation out there, and I'm not a big fan of all the motivational shit out there, but there's a big new deflection. Okay, and I don't know if you guys have heard this before, where you'll hear somebody say, well, I know you hate excuses, or I know this is just excuses. And it's like, this is like the hottest shit right now for people. Like, oh, it's excuses. Like, they accept it that it's excuses. Like, they take away the power to say you're giving me fucking excuses before you can. But to them, their minds have gotten so weak and so conditioned that they just accept that they suck. Does anybody, am I crazy? Am I the only person that's heard this before, where it's like,
now that you say that, yes. Yeah, it's everywhere. You're right.
100%.
It just happened this morning. I'm like sitting here in my head thinking about all the different examples.
Yeah, I know you've heard this before, right? Or I know what this sounds like. I mean, it comes in all forms.
It's so true. And what's really funny is, since working with you guys, I'll go to leave you a voice note and I'll be like, shit, this is an excuse. And I'll delete it and I'll do it again. I'm like, oh shit, that's an excuse. And it makes me think. So now I try to, because you really do coach from a place of love. I feel that. And I try to really, do the same thing with my clients. And at the end of the day, if they know that my motive is that I love them and I want them to do their absolute best, when I do call them out on their excuses, they take it. They're like, you're right. But anytime I come from a place of just being disappointed or like being frustrated with them, they shut down or they disappear. So I have heard that, though, what you're talking about.
So what I guess the challenge is, if they're taking that away from us, that means we have to level up how we come back. Because if somebody's going to say to you, I know this is going to sound like excuses, or I know you hate excuses, but how do we react? Come on, Jake. Do you get what I'm saying here? Because
I do. It's almost
I always go back to like when Eminem in 8 Mile, when he rips himself apart and then hands the mic over, and the dude's like, fuck, I got nothing to say.
Yeah.
So when a
It's
client,
almost, would it be similar to like when the coaches, like say we're talking to coaches, like, well, I just don't want to bother you. Is that's making an excuse? They think that they're going to bother us, although we're there to help them, just like a
not so
coach.
much, not so much, Jake. No,
Okay.
no, no. That's putting up a guard in a different direction. What I'm talking about is when they call themselves out.
They already say it before we think it.
Before it would be like, for instance, it would be like this. Okay, man, Jake, I wasn't able to make it to the gym the last 4 days. Work has been really crazy. And you would go, well, that's a fucking excuse, bro. What time are you getting up?
Yeah.
But now what people are doing is accepting the excuse.
Mm-hmm.
They're acknowledging that they're a weak bitch ahead of time.
Yeah.
So then it's like it takes our power away from us. Now do you get it?
Yeah. 100%.
So my question is, what's the route? I think I have an idea.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, this is your show.
Heck yeah.
Well, I didn't know if you were asking Jake. I didn't want to jump in, but
No, this I guess I'm talking to everybody.
This is the open floor.
Yeah, Steve's got the answer. It looks like.
This is just the way I would do it. It might not be the right way, but this is the way I would do it. Is I frame it as that's your narrative, and that's the narrative that keeps getting you to the same result. Because there's been a couple ladies that have done exactly what you're saying, where they'll leave a message and they'll say, I know this is going to be an excuse. I know you're going to think this is an excuse, and then they'll fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And I say that's your narrative. You keep telling yourself that you need excuses. Like, until we change this narrative, nothing's going to change. So that would be my route, but I don't know how you would handle it, Justin.
I like that. No, I that's something.
What are you thinking?
What do I think?
Yeah, that's your thought, so I need to get in the brain. Like what would be your response to that?
Calling them out. I know you're doing this because you're weak. I know
that would be my first. Yeah. That'd be the first thing I said. I would say you are making a fucking excuse. You are.
This was the one thing that they could grasp at. This is the only thing they could think to grasp at is to self-deprecate before leaving the excuse.
It reminds me of what you said on your story, Justin, that one day I reshared it when you said, when you start joking about your weaknesses, or you start joking that, basically like you're acting like a piece of shit, you've given up hope. Like you've given up hope on yourself.
Yep.
It's
so bad when it gets so bad that you self-deprecate.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same story that we always talk about, Justin. When we're somewhere and we're out, and that person will come up to you knowing that you're the jacked guy not drinking alcohol, and they come up and they make I know what you're thinking. Like they got a plate full of dog shit. They're drinking their fucking seltzer, and they look at us and they already blame themselves. And what's our response? Like, you're a fucking grown man. Yeah, don't come up to me. I know what I'm doing. But they already call themselves out. They're already making the excuse. Oh, I know. I got to get in the gym, man. I don't know how you do it. Well,
it's funny. Get up early. So today I got a phone call from a guy that I've known for a really long time. And he's a really successful guy, millionaire, okay? And he called me today and he goes, hey, we haven't talked in a long time. And I've been following everything you do. My wife and I follow everything you do. And it's incredible. And he had gotten in trouble when he was young, like in his early 20s. He's 44 now. And he was like, I just keep thinking about, and he works in high finance and lending and wealth management and stuff like that. And he's like, I'm thinking about how I can put my story out there. I just don't know how it will affect my my relationship with my clients and how people are going to think about me because I went to prison and all this stuff. And I was like, actually, honestly, man, like, I deal with a lot of people's money and their trust and stuff like that. And I open up my conversations before I ask for the money, I tell them I'm straight up a drug addict and alcoholic, and that's my business model. And I've yet to have anybody that's given me an objection saying, no, I'm not going to work with you because that's how you used to be. But when I started to actually grill him about his why he actually has that imposter syndrome. It had nothing to do with what his profession was. It had to do with the fact that he still has a few drinks every single day. He still smokes weed every day. And the fact that his wife hates that he smokes weed every day because she's trying to connect with him. He's also 50 pounds overweight. He hasn't lifted a weight since prison, which was 20 something years ago. And he just straight up told me, he's like, well, I eat healthy. I go, well, what does that mean? And he's like, well, I cook with good oils and things. I'm like, bro, you keep telling me you made 3 million last year, and which is cool and all. I mean, it's kind of cute. But no, I'm kidding. But but I'm like, bro, like you keep talking about your paycheck, but no one gives a fuck about your paycheck when you are soft as fuck. Yeah. And secondly, where do you think this actual imposter syndrome, this insecurity is really coming from? Because it's not coming from what your profession is. It's coming from the fact that you cannot share your story. You cannot put yourself out there to help people when you can't even help yourself.
Strong. Yep.
Straight up.
That happens with coaching big time. Like, I mean, I can relate. There's been phases I go through where if I'm eating like an asshole, I don't have the confidence to tell someone not to eat like an asshole. You know, it's sort of like you have to walk the walk to be able to show up like that.
Same exact reason, exactly to this day I'm still sober, is because I was not real with myself. So therefore I was not able to give my clients the success that they truly needed. And until I found that sobriety and I was believing my own bullshit, because for so long I would throw it out there and I was so invested in my own shit that I was just puking it out, and my clients were not retaining that. And it goes to show. I just thought because I'd been doing it for so long, that made a difference. That shit doesn't make a difference until you are truly true with yourself. Like our t-shirt says, tatted, jacked, and true. That is when shit starts to shift. 100%.
It's very hard to be your authentic self when you're not even authentic to yourself.
Yeah, you can't hide that.
No, that's not. Yeah, you're canceling out the authenticity. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's like it reminds me of Randy. Like, I remember Randy Man saying to me when we had one of our calls that, you know, if you don't believe in yourself, how do you expect to convince somebody else to believe in you? And 100%. That has resonated. So true.
100%. But somebody like you, Aubrey, that's been through what you've been through and accomplished what you've accomplished, getting a pro card and a degree at that level,
amazing,
in a single year, like, you know, you should be able to believe in yourself. You should be able to be very, very happy with the person that you are. You know,
I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, and again, I'm not here to stroke your ego. It's just the facts. It's just the facts. We've all been through enough and accomplished enough, you know, and maybe we're late bloomers. We talked about this the other day with Dane, that the best bloomers are the late bloomers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the late bloomers tend to weather more storms. The early, is it an early bloomer? Is that what it's called? I don't know. Whatever. They tend to wash up and become haydayers.
I like that because I sometimes feel like I started too late.
No.
I remember too.
Most millionaires didn't actually start until they were in their late 30s.
I think I did learn that from you guys. One of y'all said that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
What also stood out to me that you guys taught me, you know, going back to that tough love and just shooting it straight, is I remember, I think it was Dane on a call to me said something about you didn't get sober, you didn't go pro, you didn't do all these things to let people run over you. And that was because when I first started with you guys, I was still having trouble setting boundaries with people and not letting people take too much of my time, not in a selfish way, but just, I think you know what I mean. And
yeah,
I don't know. It's been really cool. Just you guys helping me step into just a higher self.
100%. Well, that's what this should be. At the end of the day, we're coaches, right? Before we're business mentors, and that's how it is. My dog's barking.
I was wondering if that was your dog. So tell me this, Aubrey. we know how your 2023 is gone, and I like to ask this: like, where do you see yourself next year? What are your plans for next year? What do you look to accomplish next year?
It's big. It's big. Feeling big energy about next year.
There's no time limit
Every
on this, so explain.
yeah. Every year I have these numbers in my head, like, oh, I'm gonna get, help this many women, or I'm gonna get here. It's almost like I'm not seeing ceilings this year. It's really
Mm.
cool. Like, just what I'm trying to do is, just as soon as I feel like that's the most I can do or the best I can be, it's like, no, think bigger. Like, just think bigger. So I would say I want to help a lot more women at this point. I want to build a team just like JW, not just like
Mhm.
JW, my own team, but just with the energy that JW has. I want to bring that to women, and I want to be able to help women in that way. So I would say that is where 2024 is going to go. And I might jump on stage again. I might do figure. It will be my first time doing IFBB figure. So I've always done women's physique, but those women are getting very large very fast. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think I might do that. I got a little energy around it, but my biggest energy is going to be around coaching, helping women.
I love that, and I can't wait to see where that goes. You know, what you said kind of sparked something that I've been really kind of meditating on this the last few weeks, and really leading up to the new year is something I'm going to continue to focus on, um and that's fuck goals.
I just was going to say that.
Fuck goals. My main thing, I'm not even going to say goal. My main thing for 365 days is I'm going to truly live in the moment one day at a time. And I do
Mm,
that. I do that. But I'm not going to worry about the vision boards, the goals and all of that right now. I'm
Mm.
going to maximize every fucking second of my day, every day, over and over and over again. I'm going to run my process, and if it stops working after a few days, I'm going to find out why it is, refine it, and keep going. And I didn't want to steal your thunder right there, but what you said really struck me because it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. Fuck goals.
yeah. No
Fuck them.
ceilings.
And I've heard you say that before, Justin. As she was saying that, I literally thought that. And you put a boundary on yourself. You put a limit on yourself when you start setting goals, because we're more than capable of achieving the higher. You know what I mean? And I love that,
Always.
Aubrey. I love that about you.
Always.
Mm,
Love that.
Scott Adams said it, goals are for losers, systems are for winners.
Yeah.
yeah.
My system is going to be really staying in the moment every single day and blocking out anything. If it starts to become a distraction, if it's a person that's becoming a distraction, gone, cut, gone, never talk to you again. And I'm
Gosh,
good at
I
that.
just heard that this morning on a
Mhm.
podcast. They said, instead of worrying about your to-do list, worry about your not to-do list. Like, what do you need to cut out?
Yep.
That's crazy. On the same page for sure.
I've been saying that forever. Is it's not about what I do that gets me to where I am, it's what I don't do. And and that's it. And now I'm done doing goals. I'm done with
I
goals.
love it. I love that we're on the same page. I can't wait for 2024.
Jake, let's get a graphic together. JWFIT. Fuck your goals.
Copy.
People are going to be so confused. They're going to be like, "Wait, what? No goals? What kind of coaching program is this?" I think it's
Good.
awesome.
Make them think. Give them something to talk about.
Yeah.
It would be. It
Oh,
would be really
Steve,
good. So,
thank you for the carousel heads up. That was a great idea.
This
well,
was
real
done.
quick, just so we can wrap this up real quick. How do we get a hold of you?
Okay, so Instagram is Aubrey the Sculpting Coach. That would be the quickest way. Or Facebook, Aubrey Whitley. Shoot
Yeah.
me a DM. Always open to talk.
Let's go.
There you guys have
We'll
it.
put all your information in here as well. Awesome. All right, guys, that wraps up an episode of the Wolves Only podcast powered by JWFIT. Listen, if you guys like what you heard, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like and comment, help us get our message out there. If you want to work with our team, go ahead and click the link in the description below. Schedule a call with us. We'd love to get you on. We really appreciate you guys listening. And if you have any other questions, you can reach out to us on all forms of social media. Thank you so much.